Senator Klobuchar.
Well said, Senator Capito. Thank you. And I agree. Thank you for all your good work, and thank you, Chair, for having this really important hearing. We all know what happened. I know that, as we say in the Senate, everyone has said it, but I haven't said it. But I know what happened in my state, and that is that in Minnesota, nearly 80% of Southwest's flights in and out of our Minneapolis-St. Paul airport were canceled over the Christmas holiday weekend. And meanwhile, the breaking in the crew scheduling led to a lot of overworked Southwest employees with little direction on how to improve the situation. We all know it's unacceptable, and I appreciate the apologies and the comments about the changes that are going to be made. Senator Moran and I co-chair the Travel and Tourism Caucus of the Senate. We're very focused on this, as I know the chair is and many others. So I worked with Senators Moran and Capito just recently to introduce the NOTAM Improvement Act, which is a simple beginning to all this, with a task force to recommend improvements to prevent future outages. Representative Stauber from Minnesota carrying it in the House. It actually already passed the House, and I know there's going to be many other ideas. I know that Senators Duckworth, Thune, Moran, Fisher, and Kelly and myself are working on a bill to expand the FAA's workforce development, which is also a key part of this, both at the FAA and the private airlines. So, Captain Murray, in your testimony, you highlight how in November you warned about risks associated with the crew scheduling and IT systems. Why do you think your warnings were ignored?
Thank you, Senator. That podcast was one of many warnings that we had relayed to Southwest, either publicly, privately, and we've been trying, as I testified a little bit earlier, we've tried to offer solutions where we see breakdowns. And so we've gotten very little traction in that regard. And so as we have moved forward, we have been expressing some very dire warnings about how brittle.
Okay. I'm going to go to you, Mr. Waterston. Southwest recently announced $1.3 billion investment to update the technology. Is that going to get at the issues that Captain Murray raised? How is the money going to be spent?
Thank you, Senator. Yes, the $1.3 billion is a 25% increase over 2019 pre-pandemic levels. So we're increasing our IT spend, obviously faster than our company is growing, and we're going to use that across the operation, both in the crew scheduling area, but also in our ground operations and flight operations area, so that we can make sure that we have modernized our operation.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Pinkerton. In addition to the operational challenges this winter, there were also disruptions during the spring and summer of 2022. Part of it was post-COVID travel demand. What changes did airlines implement to correct the operational challenges they faced during this time period?
You're absolutely right. Carriers did learn lessons post-pandemic. We had to change our staffing models as a result of people being sick, increased absenteeism. The two most important things we did, we reduced our schedules by 15% in 2022. Mm-hmm. And then secondly, we went on a hiring binge. We hired 50,000 people in 2022. As I was saying earlier, carriers have identified the fact that they need 5 to 15% more staff to fly a smaller schedule.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Mr. Watterson, different subject, customer service. Senator Baldwin, I heard, ask some questions about it. Could you talk about what steps you've taken to improve customer service and communication with passengers? Senator Capito got it, clearly some of the remedies.
Thank you, Senator. Yes, we've implemented improved ways for customers to inquire with us about refunds, baggage return, and the like. And we've also made sure that we stayed well within the DOT guidelines for how we reimburse and refund customers who've had disruptions. We pride ourselves on having high Net Promoter Scores, so we're making sure we have increased staff, increased investment to be able to respond to our customers when they contact us.
Okay, very good. I think you know how important I believe it is to have competitive airlines and have more competition. So I'm with you, hoping that this is all going to work and that you get at some of these cyber issues, because we can't have no competition in the airline. And you're clearly, as we all know, and your employees are one of the key competitors for people to get affordable. And I would put a pitch in for Sun Country Airlines of Minnesota as well on that front. Ms. Pinkerton, I mentioned this legislation to get REX to strengthen the resiliency and the cybersecurity of the NOTAM system. In your view, how can we make sure something like this doesn't happen again?
It's a great question. I think that, thank you for the legislation. I think that's a great first step. I will say that I think that that's just the tip of the iceberg at the FAA.
Right.
Their capital budget has been stagnant for 14 years. So I think we're going to see more and more. The program's 30 years old. Their facilities are 50 years old. I think this issue requires leadership from the White House, OMB, DOT, FAA, and then Congress supporting an ask for additional resources, frankly. And accountability,
Right, and as well, out of my time here, and maybe I'll ask you a question on the record later, but just about the investment on the private side as well. It goes together, I think.
It absolutely does. That's something we need to do together. We had record $21 billion worth of investment in technology this year, and we're forecasting $27 billion next year, compared to the $2.9 billion that the FAA is doing. For 5% of the GDP is what we support, so it's an important investment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
all of you.
Senator Vance, thank you. Senator Vance.